friends. Pastor Anthony here, and welcome to episode 2 of what is our latest video series. This one is centered on prayer, and specifically on prayer as given to us by the author Anne Lamott in her book, Help, Thanks, and Wow. Yesterday, I offered you some brief introductory words on prayer, and I shared with you a little bit from her prelude. That was in episode 1. Today, we move into this first essential prayer, which she calls help. Now, I want to encourage you at the end of this video to stay on. When I stop talking, it's not yet over. For this particular series, at the conclusion of my conversation, my talk, I will present to you a video prayer, if you will, and it's an opportunity for each of you to practice prayer in the midst of this series. And so I hope that you'll stay on and do that. Now, let's get into this prayer of help. This is a prayer that every one of us knows and understands and has articulated at one point in our lives. It doesn't matter what faith tradition you come from. It doesn't even matter if you consider yourselves outside of a faith tradition. You have reached moments in your lives where you were at the end of your rope, where your usual answers just didn't work anymore. And you had to look outside of yourself for help, for strength, for comfort. And when you did, you were articulating this prayer of help. Now, if we look inside our own tradition, our Christian tradition, our biblical tradition, we see within many of the scriptures, most notably the Psalms, we see prayers of help. People crying out for strength and comfort in difficult times. People reaching out for help for themselves and for others. And if we look inside of that New Testament, our Christian scriptures, and we think back to what we just experienced, that Holy Week story, we met a Jesus who was in the Garden of Gethsemane the night before he was going to be taken away to death. And he says to God, God, please take this cup away from me if it be your will. In other words, Jesus is praying this prayer of help. And then on the cross, he says, my God, why have you forsaken me? Those words come from the Psalm, Psalm 22. And they are a prayer, a plea for help and for understanding. And so we all know this prayer. And so let's look inside this chapter a little bit, and I want to share with you some of the words that Lamott shares, and I hope that they offer you some help in articulating this prayer in your life. She says this, she says, besides dealing with standard issue family crisis and heartbreak, I feel that I can't stand one single more death in my life. That's too bad, because as we speak, I have a cherished 13-year-old cat who is near death from lymphoma. I know I won't be able to live without her, she says. Now, this must sound relatively petty to those of you facing the impending loss of people, careers, or retirement savings. But if you are madly in love with your pets, as any rational person is, she says, you know what a loss it will be for both me and my 3-year-old grandson, Jax. You see, my cat, Jeannie, has helped raise him, and it will be his first death. I told him that she was sick and that the angels were going to take her from us. I tried to make it sound like rather happy news. After all, vultures aren't coming for her, or snakes, but he wasn't having any of it. Angels are taking away Jeannie? Yes, because she is old and needs to go live in heaven now. He said, I'm mad at the angels. He's mad at death. I'm mad at death too. I've had it. I am existentially sick to death of death. And I absolutely cannot stand that a couple of friends may lose their children. I cannot stand that my sons and my grandsons' lives will hold so much isolation, strife, death, and common yet humiliating skin conditions. But as Kurt Vonnegut put it, welcome to the monkey house. This is a hard planet, and we're a vulnerable species. And all I can do is pray. Help. All I can do is pray, help, help, help us walk through this, she writes. Help us come through. She says it's the first great prayer. I think she's right. The first great prayer, this acknowledgement that we cannot do this ourselves, that we need help. So I pray, she says, help, hold my friends, hold me in your light. And then she writes later in that same chapter, she shares this personal story. She says, I think it is safe to say that not one single family member or close family friend prayed except for my paternal grandfather. She's talking about her experience growing up. And she says only her paternal grandfather, as she knows it, was someone who prayed in the way that she understood it. And she says he had been a Christian missionary and he loved his grandkids in a way he hadn't been able to love his own kids. He had never once told my father that he loved him. That simply wasn't done. Almost all I remember of my grandfather is how bald and gentle he was. Also, that people in public were in awe of him. I remember sitting in his lap and the smell of his pipe. I was 6 when he died. I know, she says, beyond a shadow of a doubt, with no proof, that my grandfather prayed for all of us kids. Remember, he was the only one that she thought or knew that prayed for her. And she says this, she says, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, with no proof, that my grandfather prayed for all of us kids. And as it turns out, she writes, if one person is praying for you, buckle up. Things can happen. If one person is praying for you, buckle up, things can happen. And so I offer you those words, that comfort, that hope, that in this time and in any time, that you would have the strength and the courage when you need it to ask for help, to just cry out to God. And to cry out not just for yourself, but for others, believing that your prayers on the behalf of others can make a difference, that it matters, that this life of prayer, which is simply another way to say that this life connected to the Creator of all things, including us, that it matters, that connection matters, that it makes a difference in our lives, in the lives of those that we share this thing called life with. Amen? Amen.